So you've already learned one shortcut key.
All right. Okay. So we are back here for a little bit of a shorter lecture today, since we had a pretty long one yesterday. But we're going to do a demo of the assignment, and a pretty quick one. So first of all, I have been talking to some of the students that are in here, some of you are feeling probably a little bit overwhelmed, and that is totally natural and understandable. There's a lot to take in, and if you're watching the pre-recorded lecture 1, then you are getting a lot of information in those 2 hours. So what I was mentioning to the students here is, you know, try to break it up a little bit, maybe rewatch it, take a break once in a while, practice the things that you see in Photoshop so you kind of get used to where to find things. And don't be too stressed, because I'm going to go over just the few things that you need to do for the assignment today. And it's pretty simple. There's like I mentioned in my little email that I send out, it's basically just 5 steps that you need to take. And I will show you those 5 steps. Then it's up to you how complex and you know, how much you want to play with it. But that's all that's really required. All right, so first of all, before we go into the assignment, there was a couple of things that I have kind of gotten emails and messages about that I wanted to go over real quick. Okay, so some of you are still contacting me about Adobe, and you might not have attended or watched the lecture from yesterday, because I feel like I went over it pretty thoroughly. Those of you who were here yesterday, do you think I covered it all, or do you still have questions? Okay, so just real quick, if you've taken the pre-assessment, an email may be on its way. It doesn't automatically generate, and so there might be a little bit of a backup. So we appreciate your patience. It's usually pretty busy the first couple of days of a new mod, so but it should be coming to you shortly. If you noticed, I put an announcement up, and it has a lot of the links and information on both the Mac and the Adobe help that I mentioned in yesterday's lecture, just separately there, so that you can access it really quickly and you don't have to look through the recording. The instructions are all in the graphic arts community, and you need to follow them very carefully. If it doesn't work the first time, maybe go over it another time just to double check that you followed all of the different points specifically. The intro session recording from Monday, that's on the live sessions page. Again, I go over everything there, and it seems like most of you who were there yesterday feel like you got the information that you needed, so hopefully that will help as well. And then there's also the live help in the Zoom on Thursday and Friday, and the links for that is in that announcement. So welcome, Maribel. So speaking of the announcements, I just wanted to let you know, I try to answer emails as quickly as I can, but I am not on my email 24/7. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knows where they can get help if you need it and if you feel lost or have a question. First of all, I would recommend that you check the announcements. Many, many times I will post information, other links, all kinds of stuff in the announcements. In the announcements will also be posted links to the lecture recordings or to the live page where you can find those. And in those lecture recordings, I go over things as well, so they may answer your questions. Also take a look at the assignment specifications and the introduction to the assignment. There's a lot of information there, especially when it talks about what kind of file format, what kind of size, all of those kind of things that you need to know. Also remember that there is more information about how to use Photoshop and the Photoshop tools in the course media and the Linda videos. So those you can go to as well. And then the other thing that I think I mentioned yesterday is you can always do a Google search. And you can usually find answers to a lot of questions there. I actually just did that in preparation for this class because there was something that I didn't remember how to do in Photoshop, and so I just Googled it and I got the answer really quickly. We also have our coach and the Student Success Center, and our coach, DJ, her schedule is up in the announcements now, so you know when you can go to the Student Success Center and ask for her. And then we have our multi-session, and like I mentioned yesterday, you can go to any of those sections that are listed in that PDF document, also in the announcements. And then of course you can email me, and don't hesitate to email me. The only thing is that if you have a question and you're waiting for an answer to be able to move on in the course, and I'm not able to answer you right away, you're kind of stuck. And so that's why I want to you know, let you know you have all of these other resources to check if you need an answer before I can answer it to you. And sometimes I might just, you know, tell you, hey, it's in the announcements, check the announcements, because it's just kind of unnecessary for me to repeat everything when it's in right there. And I want you to get in good habits of checking the information that's in the class so that you utilize that. All right. And speaking of questions, any questions right now, or we're going to just move into the assignment? No other questions? Okay, great. Okay, so let's take a look at the assignment, creating a wallpaper. And here are basically the 5 steps that we're going to do. And I cheated a little bit because I made the first a bullet point, but that's just creating a new document. So I figured it was just kind of a given step, right? So let's move over to our to my other screen here. All right, can everybody see the classroom homepage? Okay, good. So first of all, we're going to scroll down and we're going to just go to the shortcut right to the assignment right here. We'll click on that. And then, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm not going to do it now, but I suggest and hope that you will all go through this background information right here that talks about the shape layers. And this is a good reminder of the things that she mentions in the pre-recorded lecture as well, talking about these different shape layer tools and the options here, having a shape, a path, or pixels. And then talks about the different tools that are there, the different shapes and the custom shapes that you can do. Then we go into the prompt that tells us how to do the project. So first of all, we're going to create a document that's 1024 pixels wide and 678 pixels tall, okay? And we want to make sure that we have pixels and not inches. Okay, so let's open up Photoshop, and it should just, if you don't have it on your dock, you can go under in your Finder, and you can go under your applications, and then scroll down until you find your, here's my Photoshop, Adobe Creative Cloud, and there it is right there. But hopefully you have already put it into your dock, okay? So open up Photoshop, and once it's open, here's another little thing for you. As you get in here, you can click this to create a new document, but I just wanted to show you that right here when you open up Photoshop, if you click on this Learn tab, here's all of those tutorials that we also found on the Photoshop webpage. So here's Get to Know Photoshop. So you could watch that real quick if you feel like it. You know, and some of these really basic ones in here. Anyway, so those are available there as well. Okay, hold on one second here. I'm just going to pull up my little cheat sheet so I remember to cover everything that I wanted to do. All right, we just had somebody else join us. Was that Joanna? Welcome. whoever, it lists people kind of in alphabetical order here, not in order that you enter the room. So, all right, well, welcome, Joanna. Okay, so let's start by creating a new document. So we'll just click that, create new. You can also do it down here at the top, file and new. You could have done it that way if you wanted to. And so right here, we're going to put in those dimensions. Okay, so going back, let's remember 1024 and 768. Okay, 1024, height 768. And notice that it says pixels right here. If it doesn't say pixels, go to the drop-down menu and choose pixels. Otherwise, you're going to have something that is not the size that we're looking for at all. So automatically, it gives you this landscape orientation because it is wider than it is tall. The resolution is usually default at 72, but if you have a different number right here, make sure you punch in 72 because that's what it asks for right here. Right? Make sure the resolution is 72 pixels per inch. And then save your document as a PSD. And then you can name it right here. And so we have our little naming convention right here. And what I usually do to make sure that I always keep things in the right order is I just copy that right out of the assignment and then paste it right in here. But then, of course, I'll have to change this to my name, right? And good practice is to name your document. Whoops. I didn't mean to redo all of that. There we go. Rename the document right away when you save it so that you don't accidentally forget to save it and something crashes and you lose all of your work or whatever. You can keep your color mode at RGB. If you remember from the lecture, that is what's recommended when you start working in a Photoshop document. You can always change it later if you need to. Okay, so we're just going to click create, and then we have our document right there, and you can see the name of it and all of that kind of stuff right there. All right, so let's go back to our instructions. So what it tells you to do is create a new layer and fill it with a background color using the paint bucket tool. Okay. So that's our next step. Select a background color. So to be able to use the background, you have to unlock it. Otherwise, you can't do anything to it. Otherwise, it's usually locked. So you just unlock the layer, grab your paint bucket tool, and choose a color. Now you can go in here and you can kind of use this little scale right here to pick a color that you would like. And, think about this. You can always change it after if you'd like, or you can test some different background colors when you get to that point. But choose a color that you feel is going to be something that you like. This design, even if we're just practicing different tools, you're going to want to make something that's kind of aesthetically pleasing, right? Something that you want to look at. And if it's a wallpaper, you're going to want it to be something that's pleasing. So I kind of like turquoise color, so I'm going to go with that, but I kind of want to gray it out a little bit more, I think, because that's a little bit bright for a background. So I'm going to pick it a little bit grayer. There we go. Okay. All right. Our next step. Utilize at least 3 of the 4 shape layer tools, the ellipse, the rectangle, the polygon, and custom shapes to create an abstract composition. And then you can just have fun and explore with this. You can add things like with the paintbrush or adjustment layers, or if you'd like, but it's not required. And then we're going to save it. All right. So once you're in Photoshop, then the next thing you're going to do is select some of those shape tools. And finding that shape tool could be a little bit difficult, I guess, depending, because it could be a different shape showing here than than what I have. So, but if you hover over your different tools right here, you'll see a little tag come up and it will tell you what that tool is. So usually, depending on how your palette looks right here, it will be right below the type tool here somewhere, or behind the path selection tool. And so if you go down and you see all of a sudden it's called like polygon, ellipse, rectangle tool, any of those things, then that is your shape tool. And if you hold down on it, it will open up the menu that shows all of these different tools. So all you have to do is use 3 of these and just create some designs, one on each layer. Now, if you choose one of the tools, and let's say we just start with the ellipse tool, and the ellipse tool will also create a circle for you if you hold down your shift key. And as soon as you start creating that on your document, it creates a layer for you. So you can create your own layer and add it to it, and then get the tool. But also, if you just grab the tool and start creating the shape, it will create a layer for you. You want to, up here at the top, be sure that you have shape selected. You can go with pixels as well, but then you are restricted to what? What happens with pixels when you size things? Do you guys remember, any of those that watched the lecture, or maybe did some research for the discussion? What happens with a pixel based? It can become blurry. That's right. It can become blurry when you size it. So I recommend that you use the shapes, and that's what was recommended in your video as well. Okay, so you have your shape right here, and then a little dialog box pops up when you start making that shape, and you can make some choices right here. Like you can choose the color. So we can choose a different color right here. I'll just pop down on that, and you can even create a gradient if you want, or we can just do kind of a solid color. And I'm going to choose something that I think is going to look nice. I hope some colors that work nice together. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to have it all in the blues and greens. I'm kind of a monochromatic person. Okay, and if you want to add a stroke to it, you can. So you can add, you know, a stroke color to that. Oh, that was, I'm sorry, it was this color I had. We have to have the stroke selected. And then I can do a different stroke color, and I can change the width of that stroke with my little scaling tool right here. You'll see it'll get fatter and skinnier. You can also change the type of stroke it is. It can be a dashed one, it can be a dotted one, and you can change the gaps between it. And, you know, if I change the size of the stroke now with the dots, then the dots are going to get bigger. You can kind of see that, right? And you can change if the stroke is going to be on the inside of the shape or on the along the edge of the shape or on the outside of the shape. So those are some things you can do as well there. I'm going to change my color to something yellow this time. Okay. So those are some different things you can do, and you can add fill colors and strokes and all of that to any of the shapes, the circles, the rectangles, whatever you'd like. Okay. So we have used one shape tool, we've used the circle. Let's use another one, and I'm going to show you the other way to do that by adding a layer first. And then while I'm on that layer, I will choose another shape. So this time I'm going to choose the polygon tool. And now you can see that, you know, when I start creating it, and I have already had some settings on this because I played with it, it's right on this layer right here. But that little dialog box that I had before is not popping up. So if I want to make changes to this now, I'm going to have to kind of click my selection tool and then it will give me some different options right here, but it's not going to give me those fill colors and all of that kind of stuff. This one here gives me different sides, so I can decide if I just want this to be 3 sides, then it becomes a triangle, right? I had 8 sides on mine, and then I selected smooth corners and a star, and I changed the indent right here. So I wish that there was a preview button here so you could kind of see what it looks like, but you can kind of see a little bit of an idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, so I'm gonna, oh, what happened now to it? Figures. I'm gonna have to move it. Well, I don't know what happened to it. It's sitting back here. It's in the same, it's the same color. Figures, that kind of stuff always happens when you're trying to show somebody. All right, so I'm going to turn that off for now, and I'm going to give you the suggestion to just go with creating a new layer by adding, not creating the layer, but just adding the layer by creating, by, what am I going to say? By using the tool. Okay, we can change the fill color up here. Let's do that so we can see it. Let's, there we go. Now, and the thing with the Photoshop, that's a little bit different than Illustrator, which I work in the most, is that if it's outside of your canvas area right here, you can't see it, okay? And so if you want to move this shape a little bit, you need to use your move tool. So let's do that right now. If you choose your move tool, that's also just the V key on your keyboard, so it's an easy one to remember. But if you have your move tool, then you can grab your object and move it. Now, this is the thing that I looked up on Google because I had forgotten it. There's 2 different ways to grab something when you're going to move it. If you have your auto select up right here, then you can just select it on the artboard and grab it and move it around. See, I can grab the circle or I can grab my flower right here. And every time when I grab it, it's going to highlight the layer that I'm moving around. Okay. If that is not selected and you don't have that auto select option, you have to be on the layer to move something, and that's really annoying to me. So that way I would have to be on this layer to move this object, wherever that's at, but maybe now I can find it. Maybe I can't. Where I had to be on this layer to move this thing. And if I'm on this layer, I can't move the circle, even if I grab it, okay? It doesn't move because I have to be on that layer to move the circle. And that's something that I always thought was kind of annoying with Photoshop, but I like that they have now the auto select that you can click, and then it's a lot more intuitive and you can just kind of grab the thing that you want to move. All right. Okay. All right, so now you can size and place these objects as you want, but we're gonna have 3, right? So we used those 2 tools. Which one do you guys think we should use for our 3rd one? Should we try the custom shapes? Okay, so the custom shape tool, and if I click that, it will have up here, it will say shape, and then it will have a little drop down menu. Whoops, that was the shape that selected. That was the last shape that I selected. So let's get rid of that one, sorry. Okay, let's click that one again, and let's go up here to the top. And you can choose any of these shapes that you want right here. She mentioned in the video that you can import shapes and do all of that kind of stuff, but don't feel like you have to do that now. Let's just do this heart. And then when you have your little crosshairs, you can just drag it out and it's going to size it. Now notice how it kind of gets squishy or long or wide, depending on how I move my tool, my crosshairs. Can you guys see that? It's really light and thin, so maybe it's difficult to see. But if you hold down your shift key, that's what's going to keep it proportionate. That way it stays small or big and it keeps that shape that it was kind of meant to have, okay? And it's going to fill with whatever color you have up here. So it will probably be the last color that you used, but you can always change it here, and you can choose anything else. This one right here is a pattern, and you can test that out if you want to. There's even some photos in here that shows you that you can actually fill things with photographs that you can put in here later, but you can play with the ones that are provided here if you want to. Okay, so now you have 3 shapes. That's basically all you need to complete this assignment. But I encourage you to play with it a little bit and maybe change the size, move things. Remember that depending on the layers and how the layers are, some things are in front of others. Let's see, where's our, oh, we gotta have our move tool. You know, whatever is on top is in front of the other item, okay? And if you want to size things, you have to use your transform tool. And that you can get under edit and down here under free transform. And you will also see that the shortcut for that is Command T, or probably Option T if you're on a PC. And so Command T will, when you have whatever it is you have selected, it will give you this little frame around it. And that's where you can make the changes. So you can take a corner and you can drag it. And again, it's going to distort it unless you're holding down your shift key. If you hold down your shift key, it's just going to make it bigger or smaller, but not kind of distort the shape of it. Okay? So after that, just you know, size the things the way that you would like to do it. Select, and when you're done, either hit return, or otherwise, if you try to move to another tool, it's going to ask you if you want to apply that transformation. So, but you can also avoid that by just hitting the return key when you're done. So let's do that again with this pink shape right here. So Command T, and it will select it. And then I'm going to make this really big in the background right here, because having a variety of sizes makes something kind of more interesting, right? And so I'm going to put that there, just click return, and then that's in the background. If I want to move things and have this in the background and the circle on top, I can just take my layers, move those around, and then you'll see that it also moves the thing that's on top. So I can actually put that right in the center. And if I wanted to go back to my heart and do Command T, maybe make that a little bit smaller now, I could move that and have that be in the center of the star right there. Okay, so any other things that you want to do to it at this point, you can. And I encourage you to try and play with a lot of different shapes. If you want to try some more shapes, like this polygon tool, you can do a lot of different things with it. So, you know, look and see what you can do here. Like I can do number of sides here, and let's say I just do 15 instead. And I'm gonna not do the smooth corners, and I'm just gonna do a star instead. Okay, you can see that that becomes a star, and the circle right here in the inside is really small because I had that 80% there. And you can see that it's filled with this image that I have right here. So that's a little bit weird. Maybe I'll just, you know, pick a color here instead. And then I will move this over in here. Something else I can do, I think this polygon tool is pretty fun to play around with. So if I wanted to do a star that didn't have as long as spokes, I would change that to a smaller number. And you can see then, you know, the little spokes are smaller right there. Okay, and you know, you can layer things however you want to. Move that into the back. And let's see, select it and change the color for it to something else. And then now those two stars are kind of overlapping. So you can play with this and create a lot of fun designs. And when you are done, then if you decide you don't want some of these elements, you can do a bunch of them, and then you can decide, well, maybe I don't want this star. Then you can just turn it off and see what it looks like without the star. You can see what it looks like without that thing in the background. Maybe I like this thing better. And maybe I will just take this and with my transform tool, create that a lot bigger instead, and put that over here, move it to the back. Whoop, you have to click the enter in between, move that one to the back, see how that looks, change the color of my stroke if I want to. You can just go ahead and play with everything the way, you know, in a way that makes you happy. And then when the ones that you don't want to keep, you can just take those and drag them to the trash. So anything that you don't want to keep, this is something I don't want to keep, drag that to the trash, okay? And then I can see there's that the little weird one that I could never grab. I'm dragging that to the trash. So I just have the ones left that I want to do. And then if you want to play with this further, you can actually change the opacity of some of these items. So let's say I select this one, this layer right here, which is my yellow one. And if you have a hard time seeing which one it is, you can always turn it off and on, and then you see which thing that you have there. You can change the opacity on it right here, and you can see now that becomes kind of transparent on top of that. I could do that with this shape as well. I don't know why it's not selecting it. If you're having a problem selecting things. Okay, well, this one I can, you know, change the opacity here. You can also play with these blending modes if you want to. That's something that we're gonna work with a little bit more in our coming projects, but you can see how that just kind of changes things around a little bit. All right, was there something else I was going to remember to tell you? And I think that was it. Okay. So the move tool is where you have your auto select. Otherwise, if you have your selection tool here, it will select active layers. So then you actually have to, you know, be on the layer to grab it. But if you have your move tool, that's when you can click right on the object there. Okay. Another little thing, if you find yourself having a problem selecting things and some of these little points are being selected, it could be because you have your direct selection tool instead of your path selection tool. So that's the white arrow. You can see how this one is white. And now if I try to select this, what's happening is it's going to select one of these points and kind of mess with my shape right there. So I'm going to undo that. So be sure that when you're moving something or when you want to select something, you have the black arrow or the path selection tool. So for this one example right here, and now I can change the color on that if I want to. Okay. All right, any questions so far? Does it seem like it's pretty easy and fun to do? So make a background color, use 3 different shape tools, make changes to the colors and strokes and sizes as you would like, and just make sure that you keep, know where your layers are. Get rid of anything that you're not going to keep, and then play with it until it's something that you like the design of. You want this to be something, if it's a desktop wallpaper, you want it to be something that you would like to look at, right? So that's where you want to spend your time, is kind of making the composition nice and interesting and all of that kind of stuff. So this is just kind of a little quick one. I probably wouldn't want this for my desktop wallpaper, but resist the temptation of creating some kind of scene or something that is representative. Just make it kind of abstract and play with the different shapes and layers and see how that will work out. And I always think that, having something kind of really large is usually makes for an interesting design. So, if you make something that's really large and just kind of bleeds off the edge of your design right here, then it becomes a little bit more interesting. Okay. So now you're just going to save this. So you want to make sure that you save this Photoshop file that you have with all of the layers. So file and save, and then it's going to save it as this name, but you haven't saved it. You've just kind of created that document, so you haven't saved it in a place yet. So hopefully on your desktop or in your documents, however you organize your computer, you have a folder, and now you have a new computer, so you can always start a new folder with the name of the class. So I have one right here that's called DES104 Mod 5, and then a folder for the week in there, and then I can just save it in there. Okay, and it's going to tell you to save it as a Photoshop file. You want to do that first, and then when we go back to our assignment right here, it says save your file as a PSD, then do a file save as and choose JPEG with a 100% quality and submit that JPEG for grading. Okay, so then when you go back, we're going to do file save as, and then another menu will pop up, and we're going to choose JPEG right here in the menu and click save, and then it will give us some JPEG options right here. And then it doesn't actually say 100% here, does it? But a medium quality is fine. You can do high if you'd like to. So it doesn't actually have percentages here, so don't worry about that. And just do OK. And then that should be saved in the same folder as this Photoshop file. So if you go back to your Finder, go back to that folder that you had, and week 1, you can see there's the JPEG right there. And that's the file that you're going to submit for me. All right, so hopefully that is, that's really all you need to do. Pretty quick and easy. What do you think? Okay, the assessment, I'm going to go over that just a little bit. And like I mentioned, it is a test. And so there is just a few things that I'm going to be able to show you. I'm not going to demonstrate how to do it per se, because it's testing you on how to use your selection tools. But I am going to show you how to download and open the document, unlocking and adding the layer, and showing you where the blending mode is, where the selection tools are, but you need to watch the pre-recorded lecture and the tutorials to kind of learn those tools. And if you still need help after that, figuring out how to use the tools or whatever, you can come to the multi-session, okay? So we'll do that much of it. So in the assessment, read through the instructions again, and then you download the JPEG file just by clicking on it. it should download to your downloads menu. And depending on how you have your Mac set up, and if you're having problems finding these things, the Getting to Know Your Mac videos will help you with that. You can always find it in your Finder. And then under downloads, depending on how you have them arranged, they could be arranged by the date added, the name, whatever it is. And you probably don't have as many files in there as I do. So here is the assessment image. And you can open it up by either right-clicking or double-clicking and going open with, and then choosing Photoshop right there. Or you can open it, whoops, you can open it by just dragging it into your Photoshop icon. Oh, and we have lots of people joining us here. Christina, and who else was joining us? Awesome. All right, so then you have, this is the image that you're going to colorize. And as you see, the background layer is right here. You're going to unlock it, and then you're going to add a layer to the background. That's what it says in the instructions right here. Unlock the background layer, change the image blending mode to multiply, and then make a new layer underneath. So unlock it. Here is the blending mode. So it says normal right now. You're going to change it to multiply. Okay, and then you're going to add another layer, and it will pop up on top of it, but drag it and move it below so it's underneath it, like it says in the instructions. Okay, and then you're going to isolate areas of illustration using the selection tools that you were shown in the video, and then use the paint bucket tool to colorize the image on the layers underneath the line art layer. And you're going to use 4 different selection techniques and 4 different colors at least. And so when you're in here, your selection tools are up here. Okay, so there's some different selection tools. There is these ones. There's the magic selection tool, magic wand. There is some other ways to make selections that are listed in the instructions there. I mean, in the demo. And then you have your paint bucket that you can color things with. Just make sure you're on this layer the whole time. And then all of this white line work is going, black line work is going to show up on top of it. All right, but you got to make sure you have that multiply mode selected, or I think that, some of this white's not really going to get covered up as good. And you want to have the multiply on this layer. This layer should be just normal, okay? So multiply on the layer that has the artwork, and the bottom layer just normal, and that way it will kind of show through to the back there. All right, and then when you're done with that, you're going to save that Photoshop file with your name, and also export a JPEG of it. And then here it says just to submit the JPEG file, but if you remember from yesterday, I would like to see the Photoshop file as well. And I will remind everybody of that towards the end of the week again. But remember to save both of them and submit both of them. All right, so I have listed the steps that we talked about right here on the slides, and I'm going to post these slides up here too, so that can help you. And remember that I will also be available to help you Thursday from 5 to 7 and Friday from 10 to 12 in the morning. And so, tomorrow get started on things. And if you feel like you need help and you're kind of lost, then you can get help Thursday and Friday. Our coach is also available if these times don't work for you. And remember that there's, help if you're still struggling with the Mac or with the Adobe installation. All right. Everybody feel okay to get going on your project? So as you can see, it's pretty quick and easy. So even if you're waiting for your Adobe, and it takes a day or so before you have that installed. I think even if you have just Thursday and Friday to work on this project, you should do fine. It's something that, depending on how much time you want to take on it and how much you want to play on it, it could be completed really quickly. All right, no other questions? All right, great. All right, well, I'm going to let everyone go, and I'm going to let you get going and start playing with your Photoshop.
Are you still there?
Yep, I am.